Fairy types are cute, classy, and consistently the best type in any Pokemon game. Yes, even Red and Blue. One of BDSP's only changes is the addition of the Fairy type, as well as its heightened boss difficulty, culminating in one of the hardest Elite Fours in the franchise. Yet they didn't even add Sylveon? Well, now who am I gonna put in the thumbnail? I'm attempting to play my part in filling out this spreadsheet of every Pokemon monologue, which brings me here today. The lack of Fairy types in Sinnoh prevents me from ever having a full team of 6, but even more so, it prevents me from catching a Fairy type in the early game. So what do? I've gone down the event route before, as in online or in-person event Pokemon, but I actually don't need to do that in this game. In BDSP, 2 fairies become available at the same time around Eterna City, Ralts from the Underground, and Cleffa from Mount Coronet a route over. The typical solution is to make the earliest encounterable Fairy type your starter, and since both of these Pokemon are at about the same point in the game, I'm gonna be choosing Cleffa. Does everyone have vertigo in this game? What the? Maybe it's because of my original Pokemon Pearl playthrough as a kid, but I've always loved Cleffa. My favorite baby Pokemon for sure. In this playthrough, however, it won't remain baby for long. The Gen 4 remakes can be very cutthroat, with boss trainers eventually having min-maxed EVs akin to that of Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. Luckily, that won't be happening until later, but Shrek still has her work cut out for her in her first major 1v3. While we can't exactly learn any water-type moves, there are a couple things we could do to heavily increase our winnability. First off, there's an Abra trait in Orberg City, and this Abra is holding an Oranberry. This is the first bit of healing we'll have access to in the game, and keeping that Abra on the team for the time being will help out too. I won't be using it in battle, of course, as that would break the rules, but with him in the back, Rourke's lead Geodude is encouraged to set Stealth Rocks rather than attacking. Because of that, Shrek is able to welcome the Onix with every bit of her HP intact. Which doesn't last for long, as the opposing Colossus lands a crit with their first rock throw. We exchange a couple more blows, and Shrek remains in the green even after a second rock throw. But we're behind pace now, and our Oranberry may not be able to make up the difference. On top of that, Cranidos might need more than 2 hits to be defeated. Rolling a lot of dice here, and we got a nat 1? So in BDSP, the affection and friendship stats are merged into one, and high affection basically makes you an anime protagonist. With such a high friendship needed to enable her evolution, Shrek is capable of just being the main character. We may not pull off the 2-shot, but after taking advantage of the heal turns and continuing to dodge even Cranidos' leers, Shrek completes this 1v3 while retaining her berry. I don't like winning like this, and as soon as the game lets me, I will be lowering that affection stat, in a morally unambiguous way, but for now I'm just gonna roll with it. It might be necessary for the Mars fight anyways. Unfortunately for Shrek, those main character moments refrain from happening ever again. In fact, the opposite happens, as Mars' Zubat lands every supersonic and proceeds to lock us into a combo of flinches and confusion hits. Luckily she opts to U-turn once we're nearing half health, because otherwise I might have ended up just wiping. Shrek breaks through the confusion on the switch and utilizes Life Dew to recover some HP. It's no Moonlight, but it is something. Holding strong between the Oranberry and the continuous use of Life Dew, Purugly just isn't able to break past our natural bulk. Man, I wonder what's in that stuff. We did have to land a Sing to escape the healing loop we were in, but hey, if they could land Supersonics every time, then I think we could land a Sing every once in a while. Once the Purugly goes down, Zubat returns to continue its dastardly Supersonic into Astonish Flinch true combo, and it works better than I'd like to admit, but Shrek locks in and ends the fight before anything tragic can happen. See? We can win without cheese. There's only one mandatory battle on Route 205, and 2 within Eterna Forest. Had I not managed to dodge every other optional, Shrek could have very likely overleveled. But because she didn't, the run is still alive by the time we get to one of the best checkpoints in the run. Eterna City opens up many possibilities, above ground and under. In the latter, 2 new fairies will join the team, being Ralts and Togepi. I actually thought Ralts was the only one available underground this early, but I was wrong. Still wouldn't change my starter decision though. Sure, if we were to check the summary for both Fiona and Dragon, both would say that they're from the underground, but come on. Fountain Spring Cave and Dazzling Cave are clearly 2 different named locations. Additionally, there are merchants underground that'll basically grant us access to infinite TMs. At least the ones they sell. The selection isn't too crazy at the moment, but it'll improve with every new gym badge. When we return to the surface, the city's blessing lies in the herb shop. The items they sell here are for healing, and they give more bang for your buck than normal. But the trade-off is that they lower your Pokemon's friendship upon use. Unless they like bitter foods, I think. In our case, there are no downsides. We can rid ourselves of the cheesy friendship strats as long as I keep stuffing my Pokemon with the herbs. and there's nothing morally abhorrent about it. You guys would do it too! Considering the Roserade, I was originally pretty perturbed by the next gym fight, but after a little thought, all my worries vanished. The opposing Leecharuby is very passive, and gives Fiona the chance to set up 2 whole Calm Minds. After that, we just outspeed and score one-hit knockouts on both the lead and Gardenia's Turtwig. I really wanted to OHKO that one, because a critical Razor Leaf would not be pleasant. Fiona would be fully capable of doing the same thing to the faster Roserade, assuming their Petal Blizzard doesn't crit, but we don't have to risk it. That's what Dragon's for. And he just gets paralyzed instead. But we accounted for that. Sure, they could just use Stun Spore again, but Dragon's got Yawn. 2 could play the status game, bub. We needed Roserade to sleep, because even if their only poison move is Poison Sting, they'd easily win with a drawn-out battle after their Citrus Berry and potions get used. But Dragon had other plans. His very first Extrasensory crits the early game boss, which was perfect timing because it not only rids them of their berry, but said berry takes them out of potion range. Dragon picks up the kill with a following attack, and that's that. Hold on, this challenge might be winnable. Similarly, Galactic Admin Jupiter was pretty doable as well. Of course, the level cap has been raised all the way to 30, and while it'll remain there for the next 2 whole badges, and I should be careful, this early split level advantage put our team over the edge, letting these fairies win in spite of Acid Spray doing super effective damage. We wouldn't be so lucky if they had something like Poison Jab in their repertoire, but that move's not even in this game, right? If this video's been enjoyable for your eyes, ears, and maybe even nose, I'd really appreciate it if you took the time to support me with a like and a hype. It helps me out in a bunch of different ways to continue making these videos, and I've got way more on this channel just like this one if you want more. That's all, thank you. We're entering one of the more notoriously long sections of a Pokemon game, with several routes and towns needed to be crossed before the next boss. Maybe it's because the original Pearl was the first Pokemon game that I owned, but this never really bothered me. Taking it slow through the region really taught me to appreciate the atmosphere. Mileage may vary with the remakes, but other than messing with the EXP management, I don't see it as a huge problem. Many of the trainers were avoidable, at least. And while Barry was the only somewhat notable boss fight, that doesn't mean there aren't other milestones to note. In Heart Home City, we've gained the license to allow our Pokemon out of their Pokeballs. Beyond aesthetics, there is a gameplay function to this. Every 200 steps, there's a 5% chance for your following Pokemon to pick up a berry depending on its nature. With my current team, that means 2/3 of these berries are technically obtainable after enough walking back and forth. For the sake of this video and myself, I'll just add them to the bag. The grind takes no skill and would just eat away at the limited time I have on planet Earth. Once that's gone, you can't get that back. Secondarily, there's one more Pokemon who will be joining us in Donkey the Mime Jr. Sure, another bulky, special attacking Psychic Fairy isn't the most exciting, but he's more than welcome. And Donkey will be put to work right away. Like a mule? Is that insensitive? By picking up the Thief TM from Eterna City, we could spend as much time as it takes mugging Wild Cleffa from Mount Coronet until we pick up the 5% Moonstone. After searching forever, I realized that I could technically mine one from the underground, so eventually we got it and evolved Shrek, and it was well worth my time. I think. There's also the Veilstone City department store, and man, that place really has it all. The TMs and EV medication here are almost too good, but given how few Pokemon I could use, I won't be complaining. Lastly is the Move Relearner all the way down in Pastoria City, and that was definitely worth the walk, because Shrek now has access to her entire move pool. Love that change from Generation 8. Now, just because we did all that preparation, it doesn't mean that these next 2 gyms are free. EXP management within each gym is still something to be mindful of, and each gym leader has a reasonable win condition against me, though one gym is way more threatening than the other, and somehow that's the fighting gym. In order to get through Maylene, I'll need all hands on deck. But to make sure no one overlevels for her, I'll actually be fighting Wake first. His gym trainers weren't anything to write home about, at least this time, so we jump on in to get the 3rd badge. It was 100% the correct call to begin here. With a little afternoon snack involving some over-the-counter EV medication, Shrek powers through and steamrolls the whole fight. Of course, she held the Rostberry in the off chance of Wake's Ice Fangs managing to get a freeze, but it remains unused. Shrek catches the eye of one last foe, and then we hit the road. Now, the Fighting-type gym is filled to the brim with threatening Fighting-typed Pokemon. No, I'm not joking. They're everywhere. There's no way I could get away with having a full team on rotation for these fights, but I don't even need them. Donkey, at level 28, has been blessed with, really, a cornucopia of TMs, meaning he handled every single trainer just like Shrek did against Wake. Even while keeping my stronger mons in the box for safekeeping, we're legitimately not risking anything. And after fully evolving Fiona, it turned out Maylene's gym was free as well. At least with the department store's EV medication and a mind plate from the underground helping out. Anyways, before the match, I was incredibly uncertain on how it would go. Primarily, I was scared of Lucario's Metal Claw hitting everyone for super effective damage, and no one is very physically bulky. I was considering on leading with Donkey to thief Metatite's Light Clay, protect stall out their light screen, and set our own Reflect, which would then be boosted by the stolen item, but after seeing how strong Fiona could get, I realized I was overthinking it. If this was like the original Gen 4 games, there would be reason to go for that original strat, as we would then keep the stolen Light Clay forever. But after Gen 5, we have to return the items we steal after every battle. Lame. Anyways, Fiona sweeps with Psychic, meaning I got a headache for nothing. Now, I really like Donkey's adorable baby form, but it is about time that he joins the power level of the rest of the team. In addition to that, we've even got the final encounter of the run to pick up, and that's the Great Marsh's Peekaboo. Sure, I could have gotten Puss, like the boots, a little earlier, but I was busy. Hey, we even got huge power too. Wow, careful where you swing that thing. Beyond that, we had to hop, skip, and jump through several Team Plasma grunt debacles. Because they're just grunts, I'm so sure that these guys lacked any and all consequences. So sure, in fact, that I would bet all of your lives on it. And once we pick up the choice specs, which I for sure got up really early to collect, we land back in Hearthome to take on the 5th gym. In Platinum, Fantina is typically the most difficult gym leader in the game. In this run of Brilliant Diamond, on the other hand, having most of the team fully evolved means that's nowhere near the case. Puss may not be putting those boots to use just yet, because Fiona keeps the run going by one-shotting the bulky Driftblim instead, which is followed by a Gengar knockout after taking the super effective Sludge Bomb. We had to change some things up and have Shrek take out Mismagius, but Phantom Force is a horrible move on her, and that's that. The gym leaders are in fact beginning to EV train, but only in quantities that don't really matter yet. Normally we would have the hardest rival fight in the game waiting for us, but in BDSP, that's not the case, as still, Barry has yet to evolve all of his Pokemon. Works for me though, because that enables us to head straight to Iron Island. Not exactly a tourist destination for my team of fairies, but by powering through what turned out to be shockingly few mandatory battles, in the end, we're rewarded with a shiny stone. I'm honestly surprised that we could even get one, considering most evolution items are locked to the post-game. But now Dragon has evolved into Togekiss, and he's incredible. Sadly, you'll have to take my word for it for now, because Bronzor is bulky enough for Dragon to be ineffective. I actually need Shrek to be boosted by the choice specs to take him out, and it only works because Bronzor has Levitate rather than Heatproof. The fact that they didn't set up Trick Room was really nice, but the following Steelix does have Sturdy, so they're guaranteed to set up at least one move, and in our case, it's Sandstorm, which will boost Bastiodon's already insane special defense. Also, yes, I'm using a real size mod, in case you hadn't already noticed. Steelix does in fact get burned right away, so Byron retains all of his potions by the time his Ace enters. Luckily, it is just a Bastiodon, so we're pretty safe to chip them away without any repercussions. He does at the very least predict my switch to Puss and uses Iron Defense, but even still, an Aquatail does a large chunk of damage to him. Wow, really, be careful where you swing that thing. Once the Citrus Berry gets eaten and the Sandstorm subsides, Dragon finally enters and uses Aura Sphere as he was meant to from the start, continuing our cruise through the mid-game. This is really taking no time at all. So sure, in fact, that I would bet all of your lives on it. I'm a good person. I'm gonna pretend I didn't hear that. Since I clearly have the time, I think, I'm gonna briefly talk about the additional encounters in this run. I'm sticking with this team of 5, but if I was desperate, there technically is a way to get more. Within typical hardcore Nuzlocke, trading is allowed to evolve Pokemon as long as you trade them back right away. Technically this is allowed because those temporarily traded Pokemon aren't used in any battles. But that's how I see it anyways. This understanding of the rule set means that I could trade back and forth over and over with a third party until my regional dex is complete in order to unlock the national dex. This would not only allow me to gain more encounters in the underground, but more from the Trophy Garden, Daily Swarms, and even the Poke Radar. All are simply locked behind the National Pokedex, and I seriously considered committing to that. One of the ways to make BDSP worth playing over the originals would be the ability to utilize every single mechanic, I think. As a baseline, it would at least make them more replayable. But at the end of the day, I wasn't sure how well that would be received, and I wasn't too sure I would feel happy with that either. Especially considering I kind of already have the best fairies in the game. Sure, the abilities and type coverage would be really nice, but ultimately I think I'll live. It's not like a Mawile would be a game changer against Cynthia's Garchomp or anything, you know? Anyways, now we're challenging the nameless Ice-type gym leader, and it was my Flying type that clutched up, oddly enough. I assume thanks to him being an early-gen normal type, Dragon has an insanely vast toolkit that even the 7th gym leader couldn't stand up to. Sure, her Metacham threatened us with Rock Slide flinches, and our Air Slash could have missed, but doesn't happen. Sneasel's only Ice-type attack had negative priority, and even if it didn't, Dragon was holding the Yachi Berry. What follows is a long and drawn-out sequence that's essentially Team Galactic-shaped set dressing. Several mini-bosses block our way, but none of them pose any new challenges to us. The real challenge meets us up at the top of Spear Pillar, with the culmination of all of Team Galactic's misdoings. Just a couple goofs and gaffes, what do you do? The multi-battle involving Mars and Jupiter wasn't too difficult, all things considered, but in this game, it does immediately lead to Cyrus right away. That's why I led with Donkey, who's able to set up Reflect in order to help my damage dealers retain their citrus berries. It's a bit of a slog, as Berry doesn't help as much as I would like him to, but Shrek ends up doing his job and focuses down one side perfectly. Eventually I bring Donkey back out to finish the job, because that way I could still preserve berries. Our type coverage isn't the best for Team Galactic as a whole, so I'm pretty glad we're done with those guys. All except for Cyrus, who now has a Crobat in the back as he's learned about the power of friendship or something. But even worse, that Crobat has learned Cross Poison. That move is incredibly threatening to my team, so I need Donkey to set up Reflect to help mitigate it. Cyrus is reading me into next week though, and his Honchkrow keeps using Defog to get rid of said Reflect. So, you know what? We outspeed. I'm just gonna use Dazzling Gleam and move on. When Crobat does appear, he fortunately just sets up their Tailwind while we get our Light Clay boosted Reflect up. I don't mind their Tailwind because other than Donkey outspeeding Honchkrow, I don't really care about the speed tiers. Since Donkey's taken 0 damage so far, I figure I might as well get some damage off and use Psychic. While their Cross Poison still does about half and lands the poison. Wow, if they attacked without Reflect up, we would have easily had our first death. Huh. What catches me even more off guard is that as I attempt to switch out, Cyrus does the same? I can't say I'm complaining. Cyrus's Weavile is heavily lacking in the ice attack department, so Dragon isn't threatened at all. Or Sphere doesn't get the Yoko thanks to their Choppleberry, and then we follow up with Ancient Power to get the kill. And Dragon gets the Omni Boost. Okay! Between that and the Reflect, and Cyrus healing his Crobat with a Super Potion, the rest of this fight boiled down to yet another Dragon Sweep. I don't think I overprepared, personally, because without that boost I would have had to switch a lot more, but I kinda got lost in the sauce. Without putting anyone away in the box, and immediately catching Dialga with the Master Ball afterwards, the EXP gain from all 3 battles put 3 of my Mons just over the level cap. Gonna have to be extra careful with the EXP management one last time, and even more careful against Volkner. But if anyone can do it, it's Fiona and Shrek. And actually it wasn't very difficult. There's only one mandatory route trainer, and the gym trainers all have Pachirisus and Pikachus. I don't know, man. I just didn't want to get too comfortable, because I know this Elite Four will obliterate me if I do. Anyways, Volkner's lead is surprisingly his biggest menace. I figured his Raichu would spam Volt Switch, as Fiona's already slower, and that makes Nuzzle less appealing to them. But this matchup means that Volt Switch is essentially free damage every single turn. Ambipom is next, as the AI recognizes that that's Fiona's worst matchup. But we got a free Moonblast on them, which is more than enough to OHKO. Perfect. The same setup happens again. Raichu gets free damage on us, and we get free damage on Octillery and Luxray. Those two go down before I know it, because even if it didn't get the one-shot on them, Fiona does outspeed. We're able to live one final non-crit Volt Switch thanks to an earlier Citrus Berry, which really I should not have risked at all, while Moonblast doesn't kill. Shrek was always waiting patiently in the back to help out, and I don't know, maybe I got distracted and just started spamming the A button, but hey, we're unpunished. Everyone gets more than one, right? Some trainers in Victory Road can be scary, but I've got the power of the internet on my side. With said internet, Victory Road was a breeze. Lately it's been a coin flip on whether or not I could trust it, but that's basically 50% more confidence than I would have otherwise. And in the end, that sums up to 150%. Just ask the internet. Almost every item in the game is now at our disposal, but that doesn't mean that the rest of the challenge will be easy. Now my opponents are finally using all 510 available EVs, and it doesn't help that Varys' team is now fully evolved, including his starter. Donkey leads in part because I don't want this guy stealing any of our berries with Pluck, and in other part because Light Clay Reflect is really good for blocking this team's damage. For reasons I cannot wrap my head around though, Staraptor retaliates with a Rain Dance? I guess it kinda sets up his starter, but because they play passively, Donkey stays in to get the kill. Next is Roserade? I could have sworn Gen 8 AI prioritized damage, meaning Barry should have sent out Rapidash next, who has Poison Jab. Roserade just has Toxic, so maybe they did port the original Diamond and Pearl into BDSP? AI and all? This one goes for grassy terrain, so Donkey gets his second unplanned knockout. Now we're back on track with Rapidash on the field. Thanks to the Reflect, Puss tanks their super effective hit, and the terrain combos with the leftovers to basically heal everything back. How about that? We've switched from Aquatail to Waterfall to be slightly more accurate, and even without the rain, it would have been more than enough to donk out Rapidash. Empoleon is next, and I had let Barry start with Piplup since its Steel typing and Flash Cannons would be our biggest threat, but Puss in Boots tanks a Grass Knot, and Superpower essentially makes the Tyrant a non-issue. We pivot out and then back to undo the stat debuffs brought by Superpower, so Puss can use it again to one-shot Snorlax. And last is Heracross, who is perfect food for Dragon. They do set up a Swords Dance, but really, as long as he doesn't get flinched, we're fine. And Dragon stays focused up. Air Slash always lands with the help of Wide Lens, and we've triumphed over the last challenge before the Elite Four. For this entire run, I've been dreading Cynthia, but as I crept closer and closer to challenging her, I realized that the regional figureheads before her also had the capacity to be run-enders. The Sinnoh decks may not be balanced around the existence of the Fairy type, but the upcoming movesets surely are. I've done all the prep I can to play around and into these challenges, so now there's nothing left to do but to jump in. Most of Aaron's Pokemon are typically in the lower tiers, if we're purely talking about power, but his bugs are built in a way that even Beautifly could be a problem if you gave it time to set up. Dustox even comes with Light Screen, which I'd really like to forego for obvious reasons, so luckily Dragon's Air Slash takes them out before that move is used. That Oko was a roll. Heracross has a Guts and a Flame Orb. The worst case here is that the Rock Slide flinches us and enables Guts to be activated. However, Dragon stays locked in and scores yet another knockout. With a move like Ancient Power, Beautifly didn't stand a chance either, but even better, it does get the Omni Boost again. That almost never happens to me. The fact that it happened twice in this run, let alone at all, is insanely lucky. This means that the Vespiquen falls to a single attack just as easily, leaving Drapion for last. Between Sniper and the Scope Lens, Cross Poison is a huge problem for every fairy. I can't even play around that crit because it would decimate the entire team. I could switch to Puss, but the Omni Boost opens up a great opportunity for Dragon. This is now the one scenario we can outspeed this Scorpion Ogre, meaning we only have to risk a single crit if our attack doesn't kill. What? Okay. Well, we managed to live, and that's all that matters. Aaron wastes some healing, but at this point, it's all for naught. Donkey powers through as we power on to the next room. We're leading with Dragon again to fight Bertha. This time equipped with the choice specs, his Grass Knots take out her first two Pokemon before I know it. If the Sudowoodo had Sturdy instead of Rockhead, we'd surely be on the receiving end of a Head Smash. But now that Whiscash is here, ready to weaken Grass Knot with a Rindo Berry, we'd definitely be on the receiving end of an Ice Beam, which wouldn't be much better. It's not too bad for Puss though, because she essentially hardwalls everything this funny flounder can do. And while Golem is faster and threatens to hurt us with critical hits, she didn't fare any better in the end. Lastly, when it came down to the Hippowdon, all I needed to do was pivot back to a healthy Dragon whose Grass Knot will easily get another one-shot. I will say though, between Whiscash's plentiful Ice Beams and Hippowdon's Ice Fang, I was risking a lot of freezes in that fight. I don't know what I would have done if Bertha got one. While those first two battles were ultimately not too bad, Flint is the first of the Elite Four who I'll need to be a little craftier around. I can't simply rely on Puss and Dragon like before, but that might be hard to believe considering I'm leading with the former. The opposing lead Rapidash was supposed to be more of a formality than anything. Flint has 3 Scary Mons, and this Sizzling Stallion made sure to be the 4th as he uses and lands a turn 1 Hypnosis. He then proceeds to use Flame Charge of all things before landing a Poison Jab. I'm not sure why, and I'm extra not sure why they follow it up with another Flame Charge. The RNG canceled itself out, I guess, and fortunately Puss wakes up and one-shots them after all. Man, what were the odds of them not just spamming Poison Jab?
I am not really a math guy, you know?
I would have really preferred to be a little healthier after that matchup, especially in the face of Steelix. These guys usually aren't the most threatening, being more bulk-based than anything else. However, Flint Steelix mixes it up. Adamant, Sheer Force, Life Orb, and Max Attack EVs and IVs equate to a huge threat, eclipsing even Puss's huge power. Problem here is that Iron Tail one-shots everyone in the back, which is why most of them are equipped with Babiri Berries. Of course, I can't switch without expecting to sack, so Puss stays in to bring them to half. And then they land Iron Tail. Crisis 1 is quickly averted. And Puss, you really need to be careful where you swing that thing. I thought I would be in the clear after that, but it was around this time that something clicked in my brain about the Switch AI. It had never occurred to me until now because most of the boss trainers had very few Pokemon, but either by choice or by happy accident from leftover code from Sword and Shield, bosses always save their aces for last, even if they don't Gigantamax in this game. I had a pretty good route for Flint's Focus Sash Infernape, assuming his Drifblim would be saved for last since it lacks attacking moves, kinda like Acerola's in the Alola games. But now I realize that I need to be fully ready for the minimized baton-passing demon, or else Infernape will be unkillable. So Shrek enters the fight early. She's got the choice specs, and a single Thunderbolt should be more than enough for the bunny and the blimp. I mean, I was really afraid of the Steelix, to be fair. Regardless, we stay in to Moonblast away the Lopunny, and then we enter the moment of truth. And then leave it. I've been trying to actually figure out trainer AI lately, as part of my goal to beat a difficulty ROM hack of every generation calculus, and right now I'm beginning to believe that it's a lost cause. Without any evasion boosts, Infernape gets put into a heal loop until he inevitably goes down, and Drifblim isn't very far behind. Even though Moonblast was a 2-hit knockout? Why did they pivot so early? Are self-affecting status moves chosen at random or something? I really hope you guys aren't tired of seeing Puss in Boots, because a bulky water fairy is a really good check into most things. Who would I guess? I probably could have played more elegantly at the start of Lucian's fight, but because his Mr. Mime only set up Reflect, no light screen, I felt like it was better to send it full throttle before light screen could be set up. As a result, both Mr. Mime and Girafarig go down with 0 hindrances to my team's special attack. That's great because now I need to get Puss out of there. Shrek's admirable bulk is fine for countering Medicham, but then I remembered I kinda need her later, and taking more damage would not bode well. Oopsie. Anyways, Fiona tags in and outspeeds his current foe to Moonblast him into smithereens. And while Alakazam would also pose a threat, they get greedy and set up a nasty plot. Fiona's Shadow Ball fails to get the Oko, but after a very predictable heal from Lucian, we use Shadow Ball one more time and pick up the kill with a priority Shadow Sneak. Fiona kept this in her move pool from the underground, and I am so glad she did. And what do you know? Knowing that the trainer AI would save Bronzong for last made routing this fight so much easier. Wow! That doesn't mean that we're safe just yet. This thing can do 2 things, and both have major ramifications for the rest of the fight. Bronzong could use Gyro Ball, which would decimate everyone aside from Donkey, who's holding the Babiri Berry. In return, he could outspeed to set up Reflect, neutralizing their damage. Alternatively, Bronzong could instead set up a Trick Room and more or less just sweep from there. Even if Donkey sets up the Reflect, by the way. We all know how partial the AI is to using status moves, for better or for worse, so I opt to send out Shrek, who will be able to 2-shot the tank thanks to her choice specs. And they just went for the kill after all. Okay, change of plans. Time to enact a Hail Mary strat people only dared to dream of in the golden age of 2006. Choice specs Moonlight. We're backed into a corner right now and can't afford anything else. Sure, we're dead to a crit, but without a Trick Room up, Shrek can otherwise stall out the remaining uses of Gyro Ball. If I were to play more optimally, I would have switched to Donkey to play around the crit on the final Gyro Ball, but I remained unpunished. Once they run out, Donkey tags in to finally set up Reflect, which enables him to safely take out the Bronzong with a few Shadow Balls, once and for all. As someone who typically aims to win these runs with the fewest possible deaths, it brings me no joy to say that we won't be leaving this room deathless. Cynthia has a certain reputation, and seemingly to keep that reputation alive and well, in a world where all of her fans were 15 years older than her debut, BDSP's iteration of said champion is by far and large the most threatening build and difficult to beat. 4 out of Cynthia's 6 Pokemon have super effective moves to cover for fairies, so avoiding any deaths is a luxury that we can't afford. My time on this planet is limited, and my time with this team is even more so. But even if we lose, I know I'll be able to lose without any regrets. My plan is to stay aggressive no matter what. If I let up for even a moment, Cynthia will capitalize. Sure, I could have led with Donkey to set up screens right away, but he doesn't have the damage output to keep up with the Sinnoh champion. Otherwise, anyone else could lead, as everyone is equally capable of 2-shotting Spiritomb. Well, even still, the lead had to be Dragon, and that's because Roserade would be baited next. With Protect and Leftovers, Dragon can get back to basically full for this matchup, and this was the reason it had to be Dragon. He was the only one who could survive Sludge Bomb from this monster and return the damage back. Sure, Fiona could have too if he had set up Light Screen, but by that time he would have taken too much damage from Spiritomb to make a difference. Seeing the kill, Cynthia abstains from healing Roserade and goes for the kill, bringing me down to 4 Pokemon. Now Fiona enters, and I'm fully counting on Cynthia going for the kill yet again, because if she does, Fiona can barely get it first with the help of Shadow Sneak. Her greed gets to the better of her, so now Gastrodon is next. Unfortunately, Grass Knot isn't strong enough to take her out in one hit, but they only attempt to get the speed advantage with Rock Tomb before they fall the next turn. Oddly, no Sludge Bomb and no Full Restore, but I'll take it. Lucario was already faster than us anyways. This is where Fiona really shines. Because Lucario doesn't see the kill, he's inclined to set up Nasty Plot. If I'm not careful, this is yet another Pokemon that'll become capable of sweeping, which is why Fiona is still holding the Babiri Berry. I'll get some use out of one of these things if it kills me. Unfortunately, as they do set up after all, Moonblast isn't enough to kill. But it does get a special attack drop. At only +1 with the Babiri Berry, we might just live. And Fiona holds on. Literally. Listen, her friendship stat is nowhere near maxed out. And if Fiona toughs it out, she toughs it out. Lucario gets Moonblasted in return, and I did have a backup strat in Donkey, who's also holding the Babiri Berry, but we're in an amazing spot right now. Sadly, it doesn't last for long, as Milotic outspeeds Fiona thanks to the Rock Tomb from earlier. But she toughs it out again! Grass Knot does sizable damage, but on its own, it isn't enough, because the next turn, Milotic uses Scald again. And that was all Fiona could muster. You will not be hearing me complaining though. Down to 3 now. Puss in Boots is the closest thing to a Milotic check that I have, if you can even call her that. Sadly, Recover can basically undo whatever damage Fiona did, and their Flame Orb activating Marble Scale severely hinders our physical damage output. The Full Restores are very annoying too, by the way. In the scenario that Milo's Scald burns us, spoilers, it does, she can at least fall back on Grass Knot to be ever so slightly stronger. It's crazy. As a kid, I thought this was one of the most useless moves ever. Our only form of recovery is a Citrus Berry, meaning we have a lot of ground to make up for. But because Milotic still can't even come close to matching our damage output, eventually the star of both contests and battles gets outdone by one of my most insane late game performers. With only 1 Mon remaining, that means it's finally time to come face to face with Cynthia's Garchomp. Now more than ever, I cannot play passively. If I do, and she's able to set up Swords Dance, it'll be all over. Puss stays in with the goal of using Play Rough one last time, but if nothing else, she made sure that they didn't set up. 2 fairies remain. None of my Pokemon are capable of guaranteeing a one-shot on Garchomp. Most aren't, actually. By now you must be wondering, if I was so set on using the Babiri Berry to weaken Steel-type attacks, why not use the Kebia Berry? It would have weakened the plethora of Poison-type attacks we've been dealing with. Well, none of my 5 Pokemon had the nature necessary to obtain that berry. Without any other way to play around Garchomp, setting up Swords Dance, and sweeping with Poison Jab from there, my next Mon of choice is Donkey. Garchomp stays on the offensive, but fails to get the crit, meaning Donkey sets up one last Reflect before going down. 1 Pokemon left. Shrek's at full health here. The Reflect is up, and Garchomp's stats remain neutral. It's bittersweet, but we could not be in a better position than we are right now. The battle's not over yet though, because even a Choice Specs boosted Moonblast isn't enough to end this fight in a single turn. Cynthia finally recognizes that, and doubles Garchomp's attack. The air in the arena gets heavier as we finally manage to get some damage on the final boss. Garchomp just barely survives in the red, but that's all they need. The moment of truth is here. Who will be able to overpower the other? Swords Dance Poison Jab or Max HP Reflect? It all comes down to this. And Cynthia must have not seen the kill, because unlike her Roserade, Garchomp does get healed by the remaining Full Restore, and Shrek takes that opening and runs with it. The next Moonblast ever so slightly sneaks out the kill, winning us the fight against the Sinnoh League, the Sinnoh League champion, and the entire game. What the heck, man? These games are tough. Still an insanely huge missed opportunity not to at least include Platinum content, but whoever was balancing this game tried their best. I feel like they made the battles as tough as they were allowed to. The fairy types still really lived up to their hype, even through the endgame. I do kinda take back what I said earlier though, about not needing other fairies, because a Mawile would have for sure trivialized a lot of my problems at the end. Either way, we did it, even if only barely. Thank you all so much for watching today. If you liked the video, then please show it to YouTube with a like and a hype if you're on mobile. But otherwise, that's all I've got. Thanks again for watching, I'll see you guys next time, and have a good one.